Inside a silent, dust-free workshop in Antwerp, a master lapidary stands over a massive 1,000-carat rough diamond. He does not polish the exterior to preserve its impressive size. He does not admire its sheer, overwhelming mass or the status it projects. Instead, he places a cold steel blade against a microscopic fault line in the center of the stone and strikes it with a heavy mallet. The stone shatters. 70% of its mass falls to the floor in an instant. To the novice watching, this looks like a violent, senseless destruction of value. To the Asir, this violent reduction is the exact, non-negotiable requirement to achieve internal perfection. And you have probably, or maybe not probably, but there is a version of this that most people I have observed recognize immediately. It is 6:15 p.m. on a Friday. You are looking at a screen full of unread messages from people you know, but do not actually know. Your jaw is tight. You type a generic reply, delete it, and turn the screen over. You notice a sudden, quiet exhaustion sitting heavy in the center of your chest. You do not name it. You just let the evening close. A shrinking social circle is universally branded as a warning sign. Society equates fewer friends with isolation, failure, or a descent into antisocial behavior. We are taught early on that a massive social network, the 500 acquaintances, the constant invitations, the endless digital audience, is the ultimate proof of human worth. You are supposed to want the heavy rock. But a rough stone is cloudy. It is filled with opaque carbon inclusions, structurally incapable of refracting light. You can be surrounded by people, completely enveloped in their daily updates and casual demands, and still live in total emotional darkness. This happens because the sheer volume of connections blocks any true depth. The data points elsewhere. Your brain might be executing a highly calculated, aggressive strike. I do not know if this is exactly right, but the more I look at it, it does not look like you are losing people. It looks like you are evicting them. When you have been carrying the weight of a massive network long enough, maintaining it stops being a choice. It becomes a reflex of obligation. You are at a crowded dinner. The noise in the room is a low, constant hum. Someone asks how your year is going. You say you are fine, just busy, and instantly turn the conversation back to them before anyone can actually register the fatigue in your voice. And here is what I keep wondering about that exact moment. What would have happened if you had stayed in the silence for one more second? Which is, objectively, a lot of energy to spend on a conversation that lasted 30 seconds and did not mean anything significant. But you know how this goes. You have memorized the choreography. There is something I came across in adult developmental research that I keep thinking about in this context. Studies on how people manage relationships as they age point towards something called Socioemotional Selectivity Theory. The finding, roughly, suggests that as the brain's perception of time shifts from infinite to finite, it stops optimizing for social exploration. Instead, it naturally begins to optimize for emotional depth. It closes the background applications to save the focus reserves. Which, if you have been carrying this, might explain why the shrinking circle does not feel like a loss. It feels like the lapidary finding the cleavage plane. The cleavage plane is the natural fault line of a stone. In human terms, it is the sudden, glaring visibility of one-sided friendships, the social overhead, the people who only love the version of you that requires nothing from them. This shift toward a smaller circle was built by circumstances. You learned to curate your energy because the digital hustle culture demanded a performance you could no longer sustain. That was the intelligent response to an environment that required you to be slightly less of yourself with every single interaction. But here is what I keep noticing. The environment changed, and the adaptation is still running. Not because the threat of exhaustion is still there, but because you have never asked the adaptation to check. You are not just cutting out acquaintances anymore. You are systematically eliminating anyone who might require you to be known. because being known feels like a threat to your autonomy. Your calendar is full. You are sitting at a table with 4 people, laughing at a joke, and you are entirely disconnected from your own body. You leave the gathering before anyone notices you are gone. And then it is just another ordinary evening. You make tea, you scroll, and it is fine. It is always fine. I have thought about how to frame this next part. I still do not have the version that does it exactly right, but the closest I have come is this. The Surgeon General's warning about the modern loneliness epidemic is a reality, but what I keep seeing is that it often stems from improper faceting. A person clinging to 100 superficial friends is leaking emotional light. They are constantly drained because they are trying to illuminate a cloudy rock. There is consistent data in clinical psychology regarding this exact dynamic. What the evidence seems to indicate, without being absolute about it, is that a few highly curated, deeply trusted relationships buffer against physical and mental decline far better than a massive network of loose ties. In gemology, this is known as total internal reflection. It is the state where light enters the stone and, instead of bleeding out the sides, bounces endlessly within the core. 4 perfectly cut relationships create this reflection. They sustain you through a crisis because the light never leaves the circle. You are holding onto guilt for not wanting to be exhausted on an ordinary weekday. You are punishing yourself for finally learning how to rest. I am aware this is a lot of words to describe a very human desire for quiet. But consider the alternative. You did not fail at maintaining your social life. What might be happening is that you achieved a subtractive yield. A subtractive yield means the value is created entirely by what is removed. The loss of 80% of your social mass was not a tragedy. It was the exact mathematical requirement to create a flawless gem. You cannot polish 1,000-carat rough stone into brilliance. The opaque carbon must be discarded. But this is where the cost actually lives. The isolation is not a cure, and it is not a disease. It is a boundary you built because you forgot how to interact without performing. You do not hate people. You hate the version of yourself you feel forced to be around them. The refusal to engage is not about them seeing your weakness. It is about you finding out that needing does not feel like a choice you still have. You have declined the option so many times, you are not sure it still exists for you. That is not independence. That is a door you locked and lost the key to. You did not choose this structure, but you are the only one in a position to notice it. That is not a burden. That is actually the only real place this changes. I have suggested this perspective to people, and it does not always work the way I describe. Sometimes the guilt of the unread text is loud, but the direction tends to hold. Look at your highly pruned text logs. Look at the silent Saturday afternoons. Stop viewing them as shattered debris and start seeing them as the elite asset they actually are. If there is someone in your life that this describes, not you specifically, but someone else, you can send it without an explanation. They will know. You will probably still feel a twinge of guilt tomorrow when you decline an invitation. Not because you do not understand your own value now, but because insight and action operate on 2 entirely different timelines. And I keep wondering, what would it feel like, specifically, to let the 3 people who actually matter see the version of you that does not have to perform? The stone is finally cut, but now you have to figure out what to do with the light.